My name is Deeta Sharma, and I'm the Schlesinger Global Chair in Family Business at the Grossman School of Business, University of Vermont. This is our third Family Business Sustainability Forum. These are free-flowing conversations with family business leaders running their business with sustainability principles embedded in core operations. Today, I'm joined by three guests. Dr. Sri Ram, founder and managing director of Supreme Creations, UK, who launched his company in 2000 after a successful career with iconic Indian multinationals like DCM, Modi, and Birlas. Second generation leader Smruti Sriram Blunt is the current CEO of Supreme Creations. A social science graduate from Oxford, an MBA from London Business School, she joined her father's business for 3 months, she thought, in 2008. Today, 13 years later, she's added her own distinctive innovations and contributions to the business. This father-daughter duo has built the world's largest ethical manufacturer of eco-friendly packaging with 60,000 retail clients, including Dior, Nike, Tesco, and so many others. British royalty and American musicians and film stars seek their products. In addition to our guests from London is our dean here, Dean Sanjay Sharma, a highly sought after educator and advisor whose research on sustainable environment spans over 3 decades and multiple industries. Let me tell you a bit about this conversation we will have. Sanjay and I will start with a few structured questions for Sri and Smruti, and our audience can enter their questions through Q&A. Our student chat monitors, Clay Lerner and Julia Grismore, will combine questions and rephrase them as they share with us. We will try to integrate the questions as we go along. And now we start with a brief introduction of Supreme Creations with a profile video that shares the current thoughts of the family on sustainability.
Supreme Creations and Bags of Ethics is the world's largest manufacturer of reusable bags and sustainable packaging. We work with some of the best brands in the world, large and small, helping them reduce their single-use plastic usage.
This is one of our amazing designs that we did for Nicholas Kirkwood in London Fashion Week. This was with Gareth Pugh, sort of archive here. This was an amazing campaign that we ran with Sainsbury's and Matthew Williamson for Comic Relief. That was a lovely project.
Our mission has been the 3 Ps, the people, product, and the planet. As far as people is concerned, we have a workforce which is predominantly women, 90% and above. Our factory produces these as a big family, and many of them have worked with us for many years, for over 20 years. And we were the first to manufacture bags made out of Hessian cotton canvas, and that led to a direct reduction of over 8 billion plastic bags in this country. It was a momentous change.
We're really excited to be launching this year the Great British Designer Choose to Reuse campaign in partnership with the British Fashion Council. This is an opportunity to create affordable, reusable products whilst championing great British design. We're going one step greener at Bags of Ethics by encouraging 1 million swaps from disposable single-use plastic in the categories of food and drink, shopping, and in beauty. We really want to just create a small change for the public by refilling their shampoo bottles, their shower gel bottles, and encouraging getting rid of the single-use items that you have in your beauty kit, whether it's a reusable face pad or the waste that goes involved with cotton buds, and at the same time educate the public around the people and planet story behind Bags of Ethics. about our 90% female workforce, about using non-toxic inks, about using organic cotton and what its benefits are over a more traditional cotton. So through small steps, you can actually create massive change.
Well, if each of us can do something, even something small, it would be an amazing opportunity for us this year to do something momentous and do something for this planet, which we all love deeply.
Thank you so much, Sri and Smruti. We look forward to seeing what you do in future. But Sri, let me start with you. Can you provide an overview of Supreme Creations today in terms of markets, operations, just a brief overview so our audience get a visual of what of the span of the company?
Yes, thank you, Peter and Sanjay. We're really honored that you invited us. And I know how much you both have put in putting this together. As far as our business is concerned, we manufacture eco-packaging. The spectrum is right from the humble tote bag to fashion bags to eco-packaging in the beauty sector, in the leather goods sector, in various markets that we have slowly brought in eco-packaging by reducing plastic. It's been our mission for the last 20 years to do that. So we've reduced something like probably about 25 billion plastic bags across over the years. So the mission is to produce eco-packaging. The mission is to increase the product range as we go along, so the scope of our manufacturing increases. We also have a key performance indicator of employing 90% women, so that becomes part of our DNA. We also try and make every part of our business sustainable and try and build a professional business with professional managers.
Thank you.
So thank you, Sri, for an overview of the company. So I was very intrigued by the statement that Deeta made that Smruti, you initially joined the company for 3 months, and here you are 13 years later as the CEO of the company. So I want you to reflect on your first year at Supreme and what helped you learn and integrate into the family business. And then what was the moment when you decided that this was going to be your career and this was going to be where you would spend, the rest of your working life?
So thank you so much again for having us. It's a real pleasure and honor to be featured in your book that I hope your audience go out to buy. So the question is, when I first graduated from Oxford, I came here as a work experience stint, but it didn't really start there. It started very much younger. I used to come home from school as a little girl, come to the office, pester all of the managers in the office and absorb through osmosis the entrepreneurial culture, the professional culture that was in the office. And I never envisaged that I would be part of this business, but I guess you learn a lot at the dinner table. You learn a lot when you have bedtime as a child about the work ethic that goes into running a family business and the sacrifices that are needed, and I suppose as a young child you don't know about the sacrifices, but you can certainly see very hard-working parents. So both my mother and my father were initially in Supreme Creation. I suppose each year has been rolling on and on and on, but as someone who's pretty ambitious and who loves a creative challenge, I have been very fulfilled in my time here. So I started not as a member of the family, but as an employee, and I still remain an employee. I don't like titles as much as you introduced us having titles in the business. It's a very professional structure here. We often don't see ourselves as a family business. We really dedicate the success of the business to our managers, and managers meaning at every single level of our business, whether at the factory which my father built, which I hope you go into more detail about, because that really is the backbone of the business. You know, anyone from someone packing a box, sweeping the floor, managing a production line, merchandising, printing, mixing inks, whatever it is, everyone is treated as a professional, and trained as a leader. So I came in absolutely not treated like the daughter of the owner, so much so that my email signature never had my surname, and still remains never to have my surname in it, so that there's no connection to clients that we're a family business, so that, you know, it can't be ever thought of that there's any form of nepotism. I hope that's true and fair. So I started off in sales, and I absolutely love sales. I absolutely love working and pitching with clients and being on a journey with them. But all I've got to say is that this business has given me an immense amount of opportunity to be creative, take risks, show entrepreneurialism, but under the respectful and watchful guise of my father and his various many managers.
Great. So, having gone to Oxford and then London Business School, obviously, there was a time when, there were so many opportunities in front of you, and you did say that having worked in the family business now, you feel fulfilled. So, are there any sort of times when you look back and you think what could have been, if you had not come into the family business?
In the initial years, so just to put into context, I had many various work experience placements prior to joining the business, in banking, in being with, I was at Deutsche Bank for a long internship. I was at PwC for over a year on their gap year program, and I did various stints in a bit of sort of journalism and advertising. But I knew that my heart was actually in working with charity and businesses with purpose. And little did I know that this has really translated as a value and an ethic from my parents. So I was never quite fulfilled when I was at these big corporations where CSR was just not, CSR, corporate social responsibility, was just not embedded into a graduate as part of their full-time job. It was a sort of one day a week here or there. So your question was about, have I had any imposter syndrome, firstly, and secondly, have I had a sort of, oh, wouldn't that be more fun, working in a bank? In the initial years, yes, entrepreneurialism, working in a business wasn't as sought after as it is now. So I think when you have had a big startup culture post the 2008 crash, I think that's when it became really interesting for a graduate to join startups, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and engineer growth within them. But at that time, I did feel a bit lost and did think, gosh, isn't it more interesting to have a city job? But I was always challenged. And I cannot thank my father enough for giving me that sort of unleashing me and enabling me to go to big company meetings and work with clients.
Great. And, Smriti and Sri, there will be other family businesses watching, and especially the next generation that might be in the situation that you were 13 years ago. So in addition to, you talk about your father, having confidence in you and giving you the opportunities to go into meetings and talk to clients. So were there other aspects of or other people in the business that helped you integrate into the business and become comfortable?
Is it a question for me?
Yes, for you.
For me?
Getting into the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can think of a number of managers. Well, I don't know if they want to be named on a public forum, but they were incredible at teaching me a lot about digital marketing, about salesmanship, you know, going and meeting the client face to face, as opposed to sort of sending faceless emails. You know, the art of packing samples into an envelope and presenting it perfectly. The managers of the business have been super welcoming, and I think you've got to, my approach initially when I joined to any of the G2 or G3 or whatever people, you know, generation 2, 3, 4 watching, is that you can't presume and assume that this is your business. I think the moment you do, you'll fall flat on your face, and you've got to treat everyone as part of your, as professional managers or members of your family. And you're not above anyone. You really aren't.
Great. Thank you, Smriti. So, Sri, going back to the founding of the business, you know, the mission, of course, was to eliminate plastic. That was the first mission, I guess, and you can correct me on that. I want to talk about how it evolved into the various sustainability initiatives and the social justice initiatives that the business now has, starting with one sort of environmental initiative and then evolving into so many other initiatives. And I want to just sort of mention one very famous American industrialist, Ray Anderson, who founded a company called Interface and used to call it climbing the sustainability mountain. He said that when we started substituting our synthetic materials with natural materials in the carpets that we manufactured, every day, every month, we discovered new opportunities, new ways to become more sustainable. So we started climbing the sustainability mountain. So using that as a metaphor, can you talk about how starting with eliminating plastics then led to so many other initiatives and opportunities?
Well, you see, I just can't really take very much credit for the bigger vision. And I'm very sure many of your listeners who are from family businesses would agree that the issue with an entrepreneur is you come with an idea, and then it is a series of breaks that you get. So, you know, it's not as if I did something really clever. It was a series of breaks, and you have a sort of a DNA right to the beginning when you start a business. And so the DNA was, you know, I came from as a management trainee in a large organization. So there was this background of being professional. So I had professional managers. So we started on that basis. But the DNA was also the fact that we should employ women, something which would become sustainable in terms of the general society around. When we then started with this business of making eco packaging, one thing led to the other. So it was a series of good fortune. And one of the key moments was during Tony Blair's government, there was an initiative which was called the Courtauld Pact. Now, that was quite a very important milestone, because the government decided to call the CEOs and the chairmen of very large retail outlets in the UK, people like Tesco, Walmart, John Lewis, Marks and Spencer, Asda. These chairmen were asked to reduce plastic bags. And in a very typical British manner, they were given the task of regulating it themselves. So they were told that either the government gets involved, or you regulate yourself. So they decided to reduce plastic bags. And so they said, look, when we are giving away these billions of plastic bags, we need to have a substitute. And that's when they decided to open their counters for reusable, sustainable packaging and bags. And that's where we got the break. So it was a break. We were in the right time at the right place. And then we had to really, we had the ball and we had to sort of immediately move forward towards the goal and kick it as many times as possible, because the competition I knew would come very fast. So the second step was, at that point in time, do we then start a factory in the UK, which we already have, but to build another factory, because we knew there was a restriction in terms of how cost effective it would be. So we decided to move to South India, where we had some connections. And then to scale it up, we decided to make it very professional, get the best consultants to get the volumes, because we knew that dealing with the likes of Walmart, Tesco's of the world, unless, you may get an order to begin with, but unless you're able to deliver, they are quite ruthless, they are unforgiving. You have to produce quality, you have to deliver on time, you have to produce at a right price. So these were all key moments. So the answer to your question was, it was not just suddenly it happened. It was a series of very good fortunes. We have to take those good fortunes as they come along. Otherwise, it will come and go. And then the key was the fundamental building blocks was, we decided to have these very professional organization, ethical organization, and a green organization. As you know, I learned to fly when I was much younger. And in flying, we were always taught these acronyms, so we had this acronym called PEG, professional, and ethical, and green. And we used a number of those acronyms across the business. And so it was good fun. And as Smriti was saying, that we used, various managers to delegate, and they are still with us after 20, 25 years. And as a rule, I've always felt that if you come from a professional background, you don't treat people in a way some owners might treat their employees. You have a much more professional approach. And because I'm a first generation entrepreneur, I had to really build the building blocks. It was far more sort of difficult, and there were a lot of challenges. And we had lots of luck. I mean, that's all I can say. There was nothing more than luck across that we managed to survive.
Thank you, Sri. So you mentioned, so I think it would be a little more than luck, but you did mention that you are a pilot. You said that you fly. So can you take some lessons that you've learned as a pilot and how you apply them to business? Maybe there are some lessons that help entrepreneurs build a business in a different way from entrepreneurs who are not pilots. So you want to talk about that?
I've always been fascinated because you see the flying that I did. I'm not an experienced pilot by any means, but aviation by itself. If you look at the number of accidents that happens in aviation, it's a very, very small, minuscule compared to what you have on the roads. That's because in aviation, they accept the fact that mistakes are made. They go into those mistakes so that it's never made again. Whereas in most other industries, mistakes are made, they're hidden. They always try and hide the mistakes. Whereas in aviation, they are encouraged to, accept the fact mistakes are made. Let's try and find a solution to it. The most important thing which I learned was the fact that the medical profession were making so many mistakes, so many negligence, and they learned from the aviation industry by having a series of checklists. The checklist management in aviation is so phenomenal. You could be a jumbo jet pilot with 50,000 hours of experience, but you still go through the checklist of switching on the engine, switching on the lights. These are basic small things which you don't take for granted. So checklist management, I've found, is amazing, because if you have a series of checklists from the dustman in your business to the top managers, everybody goes through checklists. They have to do the checklist, they have to tick it, they have to file it. Okay, I don't look at the checklist every day, but if I have to pull a checklist from any of my managers or even the workers at the floor level, we're able to see what is happening, whether there are mistakes I made. So that's the other thing that I learned. Checklist is very important. If you make a mistake, accept that there is a mistake and then open it so that people can discuss. Then I've got this thing which I think when I came, we talked about, which is the ANC. In business, just as it's implying, you have to aviate, you have to navigate, you have to communicate. And in business, you can't do things individually, like a pilot. If you're just aviating and not navigating, you'll soon crash. If you're aviating and navigating and not communicating, you've got to communicate and tell the controller where you are. So again, you'll crash. So the totality of a businessman is not just one set of skills. As an entrepreneur, okay, fine, if you're at a very large business which is running in billions, you've got very talented experts running in individual parts of the business. But in the mid-scale to the larger scale, I think the founders would need different set of skills to run the business. So that's the other thing which I learned. And lastly, which is completely debatable, which I've always felt. In aviation, you don't climb really fast, because if you climb really fast, you're bound to go down. There is a certain rate of climb. Every aircraft has got a certain rate of climb. A jumbo jet would have a certain rate of climb. Each aircraft has got a certain rate of climb. And in most businesses, which apart from the high tech, the new businesses, I've always felt around 30-35% growth is fairly sustainable. And I say that because, it's quite simple. Suppose you are a $10 million business today. If you steadily go at 30%, you are going at steady 30%. In 20 years' time, you become a $2 billion business. If your growth is 30% compound every year, it's a sustainable growth. You're not burning out. You're enjoying the journey because, there's no point, going up by 300% and the next year you've got a heart attack. It's just really not worth it. So I've enjoyed my time. I still have a lot of fun with the business, with my friends. Many of my managers are good friends. So I think that's one more thing that I've learned. So small things that you learn from aviation is very much part what we can learn in real-time management.
Fascinating. I think many managers listening to this are going to run out and get their pilot's licenses now. So for the lessons and experience. Thanks, Sri.
I'm certainly going to do that, Sri. I can't wait. It's fundamentals, the insights for an entrepreneur and a successful manager that we can get from aviation are just fantastic. You mentioned being a first-generation immigrant in UK. How does a first-generation immigrant in a new country get orders from British royalty? How does that happen? And I think both of you have been involved in that. So I'd like to hear about the Wings of Hope, the role of that, the role of Smriti, and both of you.
Well, as far as this is a very nice charity that we founded 25 years ago, and this is something which Sanjay, we come from different from the same sort of part of the world, and Sanjay and I have a lot more in common. We are both management trainees, and he's wearing a tie similar to me today. We hadn't even spoken to each other, but we have similar sort of ideas about things. But one of the things that we come from as a culture is giving, this whole basis of giving. And this giving meant that we wanted to do something formally, in a structured manner. So Wings of Hope is a children's charity which has now touched the lives of over 35,000 British students. We've touched the lives of tens of thousands of students across in India, in Malawi, and other parts of the world. Now, when students do Wings of Hope, there is a program whereby they do fundraising over 3 to 4 months. And these students are from various schools in Britain, and they form, a small group of 3 or 4 and raise funds. To cut a long story short, one of the student groups who raised funds had come to the semi-finals of this award scheme. And when we have this judging in the House of Lords, so this bunch of very young girls from a very a good school in London came along and said that they did these things, and we call them the balloon girls, and they had launched balloons and got raised a lot of money. So I and my wife Rajni went for the balloon launch, and during that time I met their parents, and one of the parents gave me his business card and said, "This is me." And I went back to my office and gave the card to my colleague, and he was always very keen on metrics, on management of numbers. And he said, "Look, let's go and meet this gentleman because I want to learn something about this management by data." So we went, after 2-3 weeks to that particular parent of this little girl. And we were surprised to see this big, huge building. And it turned out to be that he was the partner, he was the founder of the Tesco Club Card. Because Tesco is great. Tesco is a big, huge retailer. Their biggest, success was data mining. They were capturing people's buying habits, and all that was done by this person's business. And this business had succeeded enormously in getting Tesco so successful, right? So we were just chatting, and then he said, "Oh, are you in the charity business?" I said, "Oh, no, I'm not in the charity business. I've got to make a living, and I manufacture these things." And he said, "Oh, I sit on the board. I sit on the board of Tesco, and it's only yesterday that we had a discussion about changing all our plastic bags into something sustainable. So do you think, would you be interested in discussing?" Now, it's so funny because to get an appointment with one of the most junior persons in Tesco would probably take about 6 months, And this is one of the main board members asking us whether there would be any interest in some of the products that we make. And by the time I came to the office, I'd already got a call from the buyer of Tesco. A buyer of Tesco buys something like about $10 billion worth of goods, so he's quite a big boy. And so the journey was that when I went to support this young girl, it turned out that from somewhere, from above, I suppose, somebody came along and said, "Do you want an order from Tesco?" It's like Walmart buying director calling you and saying, "Look, I'd like to place an order." It was just an incredible journey. And then it just went from one to the other. And then from Tesco, we went on to other big retailers. And that's really what happens with these big stores. They chase you after the first one gives you the order. So that's the story of the Wings of Hope.
Thank you, Sri. We have a question, Clay.
Yeah. When it comes to Wings of Hope, is it easy for all employees to get involved if they want to? Are they given days off to participate if they would like to?
We involve everyone with Wings of Hope because it's really the heart and the values of our business to work with young people and to educate them. So our employees and our team members are encouraged to mentor students over the course of their projects for many months. We do lots and lots of events. So they often, our finance manager will be on the AV team like you guys are here and working on tech. There'll be radio inning. Sometimes I have to volunteer my services for playing host at various events or being computer girl or showing up signs. So our team get involved quite a lot with Wings of Hope, certainly from an administration point of view, volunteering as well. So it's not as formulaic as, oh, well, you get one day off, please go and do something within your community. It's very much integrated into your working life here. And I think that's something that we play, you know, some of the things that we do in our business, we don't subscribe to well, you need to subscribe to 2 or 3 days out of your employee days of work to do this. It has to really come from the heart, and it has to come from a willingness to want to work with the community. So for example, during COVID last year, we have an incredible warehouse of product, and local charities and local businesses, local organizations who were giving food to the homeless or those who were caught out by the pandemic, you know, spoke to one of our team members and said, look, can you donate? And it comes from the heart of our team here. They were willingly giving, and they didn't have to ask any further approvals. You know, we gave and we gave and we gave, and that comes from the value systems from within the business. So I hope that sort of answers the ethic of how we operate here.
And also, you see, we've got people involved at all levels. So for example, when Smriti went to London Business School, and this is something which I'd like to offer to your students also. Many of the London Business School alumni are still with Wings of Hope. They are mentoring, and the amount of feedback we are getting from these ex-students, even current students are mentoring. They're saying we've really never got this kind of wonderful experience, which is different kind of experience. Because if you know you've learned all the technical techniques, but it's the EQ. You know, as I've always said, that it's not just the IQ, it's the EQ, which is quite important. And when you're actually mentoring a small bunch of students,
15-year-olds,
the questions they ask you are just unbelievable. You know, you're absolutely bowled over because it makes a lot of sense. And so it's a different kind of an experience that we have been able to give. So very much delighted if you know, our good friends from Vermont would like to be participating in Wings of Hope and mentoring some students. We'd be delighted to do that. So we get involved at various levels, not just a fixed 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week. We try and integrate it at all levels.
Thank you. You might have just touched on the hearts of a few people at our end. So thank you for that invitation. In terms of, I still want to go back to that idea of how does the King of England or Prince Charles notice you guys?
So I'll take this question just to give you some context to the audience, because Professor Sharma loves British royalty, just like a great American. So firstly, we're very proud partners currently of the Queen's Green Canopy Initiative, which is a major tree planting initiative. The Queen of England basically goes into her platinum jubilee next year. So that means she's been on the throne for 70 years, and part of her legacy and part of her mission for celebrating this milestone is for millions of trees to be planted, and for the ancient woodland to be restored, and for there to be an education program for new tree horticulturalists. And so we're very proud to be associated with as supporters of this initiative. So that's one alliance that we have with royalty, but one which, you know, it's very integral to our business. You know, trees are the lungs of our planet, as you should know, and you would obviously be promoting on campus. The second is that many years ago, actually this was one of my initial tasks, was to see if we could increase the exposure of our business and the values of our business to various different award schemes. So the Prince of Wales, or Prince Charles as he's better known, has an incredible set of causes that he Do you lose us?
For a bit, but you're back on.
Okay, right. So
Yeah.
Prince Charles has an incredible initiative called Business in the Community, where he gets businesses to get involved within the community and runs an award scheme. And we applied for the most ethical supply chain category. We were against two very, very many big businesses, and at the semi-final stages or the final stages, we were up against two incredibly enormous energy businesses, but we won. We won the most ethical supply chain award with Prince Charles, and as that was a major milestone. It gave us the confidence to realize that actually, as a business, we are doing things which are unique, which are bold, which, you know, the 90% women is one statistic, but actually, you know, we have an incredibly low worker turnover, and within the textile industry, that's pretty unique. And I have been going to the factory for many years, and I've seen the women blossom, you know, from being trainees as a first job to now becoming women of the household, mothers, getting married, and you know, coming and sitting on the tailoring lines and sharing incredible stories about their mother-in-laws and their children. And so it's not only employing a statistic, it's actually getting to the heart of the stories behind your team. And we're internally grateful. So last year, you know, I had just actually gone to India before the pandemic struck. So it was February 2020. And I and some of the girls from the office jetted off to India to film some content about International Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March. And just before then, we were filming some beautiful scenes at the factory with a lot of the tailoring women. And I said, this is going to be a brilliant year for us. And little did I know that making such a silly public declaration that I may be making a massive faux pas and giving a sense of hope to people and their families and the wider local community that this is going to be a fantastic business year. And little did I know that we would have COVID, little did I know that we would be struck, you know, dumbstruck really with the scale of the issue that international business would have. But through incredible collaboration between our UK office and the incredible team in India, we pivoted massively and became not only a sustainable packaging business, but we became one of the largest distributors and manufacturers of reusable face coverings, which were very unique at the time. People were not thinking about cotton and fabric as a face mask option. It was all about the single-use plastic mask, and we sort of rallied the retailers here, worked with our partners at the British Fashion Council, which we are incredibly proud of, and changed the behaviour, changed the psychology of what a face covering would be. Now it seems very normal that you wear a cloth face covering that I saw one of your technicians wear just now. But at the time, you know, in March, April 2020, it was very, very new. So to your question about royalty, Prince Charles supply chain, you know, one thing really does lead to another. And what I've got to give my father credit for is vision building. Always in family businesses, you have this sort of notion of vision building, and it's set by the head of it, set by the DNA of the business is set by the founder, and it trickles down. You know, we know this from Walt Disney, we know this from Ford, that the DNA of the founder trickles down into the value system, and then trickles down into the strategy, the business strategy, and then the tactics. And it's always been his vision to be protecting of the planet and to be protecting of people. And so treating everyone as a member of your own family, really, I'm often sort of, we will have an argument sometimes, you know, he uses his heart over his head in some occasions. And I'm saying, gosh, you know, you are really going above and beyond what a normal general manager would do in supporting your employee.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I briefly touched in the fact that I have a little story to say, to tell you. the whole business of EQ, IQ is so important to business graduates here. And one of my friends, who I don't want to name, was very involved in a person called Chandra. Chandra is now the current chairman of Tata Sons, which is one of the largest companies in the world. And he's I think he's probably one of the rarest non-Tata as the chairman of the Tata Group. Okay, so every chairman of Tata Group for the last few years has been a Tata. So it's like a non-Ford, a person who's not named as Ford as being the chairman of Ford. Anyway, so this gentleman was actually trained by a friend of mine. And I asked him, I said, how come this man became the chairman of such a prestigious brand like Tata Group? And he comes from an ordinary family. He was not a Harvard graduate or whatever, but very brilliant man. And he said to me, the issue about this man is not his very high IQ. It's his very high EQ. His ability to connect to people at all levels in such a profound manner. And at that level of, as a leader of a business, it's not just your IQ which is going to be very important, it's your EQ. So I think that's something which I'd like to add in the sense that the EQ of the head of a business is quite important, and you can't just run with your head, you've got to run with your heart also.
Great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful evolution of your business, and I think it's been, if I'm not wrong, around 21, 22 years of evolution of this business from where it started to, it's
A bit longer.
a bit longer. How many years?
No, I think a bit longer, but I think you
Don't worry.
Okay. No, this is important for my question. So how many? You said 25, is it?
22.
Yeah, about
About 25. So no, that feeds into my question. So I want you to think about your 35th year celebrations and what your aspirations for the business are for both you and Smruti, and what would you like your business to look like, and what would you be proud of 10 years from now at your 35th year celebrations?
Well, I hope I'll still be dancing very badly because that's the fun part of the business, and I'd like to continue to have fun in the business. And I now have a grandson, and I've promised him that I'll bring him to office as often as I can. So I hope by then he'll be 10 years old, 11 years old, and he'll probably teach me a few things about the business. So that's the first thing I'd like to have fun. Number two, I think we'd like to sort of grow sustainably. We are growing well, and as I said, sustainable 30% growth, in my opinion, in our kind of business is fairly good. As I said, a $10 million business over 20 years can become a $2 billion business. Next is, we'd like to keep to the core principles, the DNA. We don't want to suddenly become dentists tomorrow or suddenly become manufacturing computers, because that's not what our DNA is. We like to continue to be professional, ethical, green. That's another key DNA of our business. And the other joke I always make is the problem with people like us, at least the first generation entrepreneurs, you're having fun, but also you're riding a tiger. You're constantly stressed because this whole business of building a business as a first generation is stressful. It's fun. Sometimes it's good fun. Sometimes it's good stress. Sometimes it's bad stress. So you're riding a tiger. And the joke I always make to other businessmen is that the problem is you get off the tiger, it'll eat you up. So you've got to carry on, find a nice zoo, and ensure that you're able to sell it at a good price. That's one option. Or you find your daughter to sit on the tiger and then jump off at the right time. And so the next part of the answer is Smriti would give you as to what she would like the business to be at 35 years old. You know?
I mean, just how we're answering this question, I think, should be interesting for your guests. In that, you can already tell this is not a patriarchal business. There is a mutual respect for everyone, including myself, and it's dual. I think sticking to the principles of the business is important, and what I found compelling is actually changing consumer behavior to think in a more sustainable way and using design as a force for change. So using design, making things attractive, and we're sitting in our incredible showroom here, and it's a kind of archive of beautiful art on a sustainable product. And so sustainability doesn't have to be sort of subjected to those who are just, you know, not fashionable, not design focused. It's a bit bland, boring. No, you know, sustainability is fun, it's creative, and actually you can change massive consumer behavior with it. So that's where I would see us as a business, as a force of change from a consumer behavior point of view. This will then have corollary effects of strong financial success, as well as strong success in sustainability initiatives that we can then thereby support.
Thank you. I can already visualize a Supreme Creation Museum at the 35th anniversary with all the products that you have created, usable and fashionable, both. And that's the difference with...
you can see our archive here. Can you have a look?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's lovely.
Yeah. So there we go. That's your sneak peek.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's going to get way bigger and way more. It's already very diverse, as your website indicates.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the last couple of years. You did mention making this announcement in Pondicherry in your factory that this is going to be the best year, and then COVID hits. How does one pivot a global enterprise that with supply chains? We hear about problems in supply chain massively in US. How do you run an operation that's with manufacturing in India, global clients in a global pandemic?
But you see, as Smriti was saying, that, you know, the pandemic was quite a serious affair because it can absolutely destroy a business. And at a time last, March 20, we thought, that's it, we're finished, because we are dependent on customers to have events. We are dependent on customers to have retail. We are dependent on customers to have activities, and all that completely stopped. It just completely froze in Europe first, and that was it. Nobody was working, the roads were empty. And when you have a business, and especially if you're a first generation business, it's the amount of cushion that you have is not as much as a 100-year-old business. So you really are dependent on cycling furiously, and it's important then. And one of the key words that I learned, although I knew the meaning otherwise, but pivoting is a very typical, an American word which you use very beautifully, and especially Dita uses it when she teaches management, which I think is a brilliant word. So to pivot a business, and especially a business, is like moving a super tanker. You're going along in a super tanker, and to move that takes a long, long time. But if you immediately take action, and this is where when we have a nosedive when you're flying, you can't just think, you just have to do certain things. You just have to make sure that you come out of the bloody nosedive, you're taught few things, you don't actually think, you've got to do it instantly. So when this pandemic hit, we knew we had to do something. And we had a chat with all our managers. We said, look, this is the truth. This is going to be really difficult. We don't know what's going to happen. And we didn't even know what was going to happen, how long this was happening. So one of our managers said, look, you know, she's an Italian in a very typical jokesy Italian way. She said, why not make masks, you know? And we said, what masks? We've never done masks in our lives. And she said, no, but, you know, you should be able to do it. And suddenly we had a project, and within, you know, not days, but within hours, we were talking to our factory, we were finding out what we should do. And very soon we found that we don't have the machinery. We had to buy the machinery. You know, everything is closed. How do you buy the machinery? And so, as I said, luck plays a great role, because there was a huge consignment of Juki, which is a Japanese manufacturer, which was lying in the Chennai port. Nobody was willing to take it. So we said, we'll take it because we want to make face coverings. And they were so delighted to sell it at a discount. Nobody else was wanting to buy those machines. So as I said, there was a series of luck which has helped us also. But then we took that as we went along. So we pivoted, not just the product, the manufacturing, then the training. Then we found out we didn't have a single order. And for that, I think Smriti did a fabulous job. She had all the big supermarkets in the country after her to supply the product. And that you can tell them what you did.
Yes, so it was through collaboration and partnership, and we wanted to support British designers who really were affected greatly through the pandemic, and supporting creative and fashion talent is very much in our DNA. And we phoned up our partners at the British Fashion Council, friends who may be in the audience today, who we are eternally grateful for, and said, look, can we raise money for charity through the sale of reusable face coverings with beautiful designer print that will reduce single-use plastic masks? And honestly, it took a lot of thinking as to what on earth I was saying, but it was myself and a wonderful senior member of the British Fashion Council team who became mini entrepreneurs, launched this business from our single desks in our room, in our bedrooms, and we just hustled. And we built up a pitch deck. We spoke to various designers, and we had Mulberry on board. We had Julia McDonald on board. We had Rixo. We had a couple of designers who said yes, and then they pulled out. And it was all very frantic. And then we got, a foot in the door with Boots, the supermarket, which is part of the Walgreen Alliance. We sold to John Lewis, Waitrose, Sainsbury's, ASOS, Zalando, and then Amazon listed us as a shop. But this was all through a lot of hustling, a lot of hard work on weekends, on evenings. But we knew that it made sense. It's just that it took a while for others to cotton onto it.
But you see,
and when we launched, it just so happened that we launched. We kept delaying the launch for various different reasons, but it just so happened that we launched the morning after, the night before, where the night before the Prime Minister of the country said, we're now making it mandatory for the consumers to wear face masks in shops. And so we had at 9 a.m, the incredible press team at the British Fashion Council took our samples, put it on someone who had a national TV coverage, and it went bananas. You know, our face covering was the most coveted piece of fashion to buy, and it sold out within minutes. It crashed our servers, it crashed the British Fashion Council's website. We didn't really know what we were doing. From 1 minute we were a B2B business supplying supermarkets and retailers, and over a minute we then had to switch to being a B2C business, where our phone lines were getting directed to all of our mobile phones, and we didn't know how to deal with the public. It was just bananas. It was really quite an experience. But I think that, that it was a roller coaster story, which I think could be made into a movie, honestly. We have not even scratched the surface in terms of supply chain issues, understanding what the product is, how it can be made to fit various different faces and sizes of face, how to not misinform the public about the health issues associated with masks. You know, there's all sorts of regulatory issues. And then 6 months down the line, we then became a consumer magazine's best buy, which again made the sales go through the roof. So
it's called Which is a very, very
magazine.
But the other important thing, because as I said, the whole basis of a product is not just have a lot of hot air. During the design of this product, we had scientists, one from Switzerland, who was a scientist in this particular field. We had another person from Tokyo, because face coverings and masks are very much, part of the DNA of Japanese people. So we had one person from Japan who was helping us design this, because how do you make a product which was not there before? So we had to virtually reinvent the wheel at that point in time. But then in doing so, not only were we making it a fun face covering which was design led, but also medically acceptable, because to sell to Walgreens or Boots, it's not possible until it is
ethically audited and product
was quality assured from
but anyway,
a medical point of view.
The Great British Designer face coverings will be made into a book or movie, I'm sure, one day.
Thank you. It's fascinating to hear, and we could continue on and on. This does bring us to the end of our time today. So I want to take a moment to thank you. Usually we say cheers, but this deserves the professional, ethical green peg. And I know Sanjay and Sri come from the same undergraduate college in India. So this is to Sri Ram College and the guys from there doing so well and families supporting their journey. So thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you so much. And for any of the participants who want to get in touch, please do via LinkedIn or on our website. We'd be delighted to hear from you.
And can I just lastly say that I'm so grateful, and I've learned so much from both Geeta and Sanjay. I meet incredible people all the time, but both of you are just really, really incredible, incredibly hardworking. When I get emails at 10 o'clock here, London time, it must be 5 in the morning, your time. And you start probably the day at probably 4 and 5, such hardworking professionals I've never really, 3 in the morning. So thank you for all the, support you have given us. We've learned a lot from your previous participants, and thank you for the wonderful book that you've written.
Thank you so much. Smriti wants Supreme Creations to be a household name around the world, and it's certainly going to be much before the 35th anniversary celebrations. Thank you both. And
thank
for
you.
our attendees, thank you very much for joining. Our next forum is going to be on February 15th. We're taking a little sabbatical for a few months. And it's with generation 3 and generation 4, generation 2 and generation 3 of another Indian family. They are based in India, Anu, Aga, and Meher Padamji. They're the leaders of a family business called the Thermax Global Family Business. It is a business that is helping others with their energy solutions for environmental issues. And joining them will be a professor from Indian Business School of Business, Kavil Ramachandran. 40 years in business, 770 million in turnover, annual turnover, 4,500 employees. This mother and daughter duo is just doing a phenomenal job. So we do hope you join. The link to join is already there on our website. And thank you so much for today. We'll be back soon. Happy Christmas, Thanksgiving, happy celebrations, everything that goes with this time of the year. And Sri Samruti, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.